For billions of years, the sun has been untouchable, a perfect engine of plasma and light, ruling the solar system with absolute authority. Its wind, a storm of charged particles, has always flowed outward in every direction, shaping planets, carving magnetic fields, and defining the very limits of our world. Nothing has ever bent it. Nothing has ever dared until now. In early data from NASA's Parker Solar Probe and the European Solar Orbiter, scientists noticed something that defied logic, a distortion deep within the solar wind. The streams of plasma that should have flowed in a straight line were curving, bending as if guided by an invisible hand. The disturbance wasn't random. It had symmetry, rhythm, order. And at the center of it all was 3 Atlas, a small icy visitor from the depths of interstellar space. At first, astronomers thought it was just another harmless comet passing through, like Oumuamua or Borisov before it. But this one was different. It wasn't reflecting sunlight like a normal object. It was modulating it, changing its brightness in precise intervals as if responding to a hidden frequency. When the James Webb Space Telescope pointed toward it, the data came back with something no one could explain. 3 Atlas wasn't just interacting with sunlight, it was talking to it. The solar wind bent around it. The plasma curved as if obeying its presence, and the sun itself seemed to react, pulsing in synchrony with this mysterious interstellar body. Some physicists called it an anomaly. Others whispered about something far more terrifying, a technology that could control a star. Because if 3 Atlas could truly bend the solar wind, then someone or something out there understands the language of the sun better than we ever will. And the question haunting every scientist right now is this: is 3 Atlas a natural phenomenon we can't yet explain, or the echo of an intelligence rewriting the laws of physics right before our eyes? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, because what you're about to hear could change the way we understand not just the sun, but the entire universe. It began with a ripple not in light, but in plasma. NASA's Parker Solar Probe, the most daring spacecraft ever sent toward the sun, was deep within the blazing boundary of the corona when its sensors picked up something no one expected. The data stream looked wrong. The solar wind, that constant outpouring of charged particles supposed to flow evenly and predictably from the sun, wasn't behaving as it should. Instead of radiating outward in perfect symmetry, the wind was distorted, bending as though being guided by an unseen force. At first, the team thought it was a calibration error, some electrical interference or background noise in the instruments. But when the European Space Agency's Solar Orbiter reported the exact same distortion from an entirely different position in space, the possibility of error vanished. 2 separate spacecraft, separated by millions of kilometers, had recorded the same impossible pattern. Something was twisting the solar wind itself. As the data poured in, analysts at NASA and ESA stared at the models in disbelief. The plasma wasn't chaotic, it was organized, curving along a clean, symmetrical axis. That kind of precision doesn't occur naturally in solar dynamics. And as the team cross-referenced the location of the anomaly, the truth emerged. The disturbance was centered around a single moving object, 3 Atlas, an interstellar visitor just entering the inner solar system. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. For the first time, the sun, that eternal constant of physics, seemed to be responding to something external. The wind around it, a river of subatomic particles traveling at nearly 400 km/s, was bending, forming graceful arcs as if shaped by a hidden gravitational or electromagnetic hand. Nothing in recorded history had ever done that. No comet, no asteroid, no planet. When the data was plotted, the results were even stranger. The curvature of the solar wind wasn't random or turbulent. It followed a pattern, a controlled deflection aligned precisely with the trajectory of 3 Atlas. Whatever this object was, It was not just passing through space, it was interacting with it. Solar physicists ran simulation after simulation trying to replicate what Parker and the orbiter had seen, but nothing fit. The sun, in all its fury, was being subtly influenced by something smaller than a moon, a fragment from another star system, a visitor from the interstellar dark reshaping the flow of solar plasma, bending the breath of the sun itself. That moment marked the beginning of the mystery, the first undeniable evidence that something alien to our system was touching the heart of it. And while most scientists tried to explain it as a new kind of plasma interaction, a small group began to whisper another possibility. That 3 Atlas wasn't just bending the solar wind by accident, it was doing it on purpose. While the Parker Solar Probe and Solar Orbiter were still transmitting their baffling measurements of the sun's bent plasma streams, the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's most powerful eye in the cosmos, was brought into the investigation. Its infrared sensitivity could see details invisible to any solar probe. And so, astronomers redirected its gaze toward the coordinates that both missions had flagged, the region of space surrounding 3 Atlas. What Webb recorded would erase any lingering doubts that this was merely a coincidence of solar turbulence. Through its deep infrared spectrum, the telescope didn't just detect reflected sunlight. It observed modulated light that seemed to change intensity and wavelength in precise rhythmic intervals. This wasn't the random flicker of a comet's rotation or the variable brightness of vapor jets. It was patterned, like a signal embedded in the reflection itself. Webb spectrometers picked up a faint oscillation that repeated every few minutes, too regular to be natural, too complex to be explained by any known mechanism. As scientists studied the data, they realized that 3 Atlas was interacting with sunlight in a way no object ever had. Normally, a comet scatters and reflects solar radiation according to its surface composition and orientation. But this one appeared to be absorbing and re-emitting light selectively, altering not just brightness, but also frequency, almost as if it were tuned to a particular wavelength. The object wasn't merely illuminated by the sun, it was responding to it. Webb's observation logs showed another anomaly. The region around 3 Atlas displayed faint but measurable distortions in the surrounding plasma, a curvature of the solar wind that matched the earlier readings from Parker and the Solar Orbiter. But this time, the pattern seemed to synchronize with the object's changing luminosity. When the light from 3 Atlas intensified, the curvature of the wind deepened. When it dimmed, the distortion weakened. Light and plasma were moving together in perfect rhythm, as though both were part of a coordinated system. To make sense of this, researchers compared the modulation patterns to known astrophysical phenomena, stellar pulsations, magnetic reconnections, plasma instabilities, but nothing fit. The changes were too orderly, too deliberate, and as the datasets aligned, one conclusion began to crystallize. 3 Atlas wasn't reflecting sunlight like a comet. It was manipulating it, actively shaping the energy it received from the sun. The revelation was terrifying. If the modulation was intentional, then 3 Atlas wasn't behaving like a passive rock at all. It was behaving like a machine, one that understood and responded to electromagnetic energy with precision. For decades, astronomers had dreamed of finding evidence of Dyson-like technologies, devices capable of harnessing stellar energy. But no one expected to see signs of such a mechanism within our own solar system. Inside the data, one frequency stood out, a repeating spectral line that pulsed every 4.3 seconds, faint but unmistakable, like a heartbeat echoing across the void. It didn't correspond to any natural oscillation or rotation period. It looked programmed. For the first time, the James Webb Telescope wasn't just observing the universe, it was being observed back. And as the teams at NASA and ESA reviewed the evidence, one haunting possibility began to emerge. 3 Atlas might not be defying the sun's rules. It might be communicating with it. The moment the Parker Solar Probe transmitted its next set of readings, every physicist involved in the mission knew something extraordinary had happened. The solar wind, that relentless stream of plasma hurled outward by the sun at nearly 400 km/s, was bending. It wasn't being disrupted by turbulence, nor diffused by magnetic fields as it passed through interplanetary space. It was curving, wrapping smoothly around a single focal point, and at that focal point was 3 Atlas. On visual models, the wind lines that should have flowed straight outward like rays from a lantern were instead bowing inward, tracing elegant arcs that coiled around the object before continuing into the darkness. The pattern was unlike anything seen before. No natural body, no comet or asteroid, has ever been capable of influencing plasma on such a scale. Solar radiation interacts weakly with small bodies. It pushes dust and ice, but it doesn't bend magnetized plasma streams. For that to happen, a force of immense control had to be present, one capable of manipulating charged particles with precision. At first, researchers tried to fit the data into familiar frameworks. Perhaps 3 Atlas was generating outgassing jets, bursts of vapor that might create localized magnetic fields. But those plumes would be chaotic, unpredictable, and faint. Instead, what the instruments recorded was symmetry, a mirror-like curvature, the same on both sides of the object, as though guided by a coherent field. Both Parker and the solar orbiter, positioned millions of kilometers apart, confirmed the same result. The implications were staggering. To deflect the solar wind this way, 3 Atlas would need to generate a magnetosphere, a protective electromagnetic shell capable of interacting with the sun's plasma in real time. Only planets and stars possess magnetic fields powerful enough to do this. Yet this interstellar traveler was barely a few hundred meters wide, like watching a pebble carve a path through a hurricane. Computer simulations struggled to reproduce the effect. The energy required to create such a distortion was astronomical, comparable to that of a small star or a highly advanced superconducting structure capable of storing and releasing electromagnetic charge with perfect efficiency. But the deeper scientists dug, the stranger it became. The curvature wasn't chaotic, it was organized around a central axis, forming a symmetric toroidal shape, a magnetic halo around the object. This meant one thing. Whatever surrounded 3 Atlas wasn't a byproduct of nature's randomness. It was a system, a deliberate configuration responding dynamically to the solar environment. The sun's own plasma was being redirected, not repelled, as though being guided through invisible channels shaped by the object's magnetic geometry. What terrified scientists most was the precision. The bending didn't vary with solar flares or radiation bursts. It stayed constant, almost self-correcting, as though the object were maintaining control. The sun's particles, once unstoppable, now moved around 3 Atlas as if acknowledging its presence, as if the star itself recognized it. And so, the data told a story that no one wanted to believe. An interstellar visitor was not only resisting the sun's power, but reshaping it, sculpting the wind of our star with the ease of a hand parting water. The solar wind had never bowed to anything before, until 3 Atlas arrived. As 3 Atlas drifted deeper into the solar system, its behavior became even more disturbing. Astronomers expected its brightness to fluctuate irregularly, the way a comet does when sunlight vaporizes ice and dust, creating random flashes. But this was something else entirely. The James Webb Space Telescope began recording light curves so precise that they looked engineered. The object's luminosity was rising and falling in fixed rhythmic intervals with an accuracy no natural body should possess. It was as if 3 Atlas was running on an internal timer, Then came the revelation that silenced every room it reached. The object wasn't just reflecting sunlight, it was absorbing it. Under infrared observation, Webb detected a curious energy signature. Instead of behaving like a mirror scattering photons into space, 3 Atlas was soaking in solar radiation and re-emitting it at different wavelengths, as though converting it into another form of energy. Its surface didn't shine randomly like ice or dust. It glowed in controlled pulses, as if its entire body was following a mathematical pattern. Scientists noticed that when the sun's radiation intensified, the object's reflected brightness did not increase as expected. Instead, it dimmed, suggesting a system of energy storage or redirection, not reflection. This phenomenon was unlike anything seen before, even compared to the anomalies of Oumuamua and Borisov. Oumuamua's strange acceleration had been explained away, barely, by theories of outgassing or radiation pressure. Borisov, a more conventional interstellar comet, followed predictable physics, but 3 Atlas was different. It wasn't accelerating in random bursts, it was responding periodically, as though governed by an internal algorithm. Astrophysicists started describing its light modulation as an energy algorithm, a system that seemed to breathe in sunlight, taking energy, holding it, then releasing it in intervals that matched no known natural cycle. Each pulse was steady with microsecond precision, suggesting an inherent structural rhythm. Some compared it to the charge-discharge cycle of a capacitor. Others called it a cosmic heartbeat. The implications were staggering. If 3 Atlas could absorb and control solar radiation, it might possess materials capable of managing electromagnetic energy far beyond our comprehension. Superconductors, or photonic metamaterials, designed to channel light itself. That would make it not a rock, but a machine, a relic of some long-lost technology, or a natural process that mimics design. Teams at NASA and ESA cross-referenced the brightness data with solar activity. The pulses from 3 Atlas appeared synchronized with minor variations in the sun's magnetic field, not lagging behind them, but matching them in real time. This suggested feedback, a kind of energetic conversation between the sun and the object, where energy wasn't merely absorbed, but responded to. Some scientists tried to explain it through natural plasma resonance. Others whispered darker possibilities, that 3 Atlas wasn't just absorbing sunlight to survive the solar environment. It was feeding on it, harvesting the energy of a star with precision and intent. No matter how they analyzed it, the numbers told the same story. Every fluctuation, every pulse, every dimming and brightening of that distant light followed a rule, not randomness. 3 Atlas wasn't being illuminated by the sun, it was communing with it. And in those silent exchanges of energy, humanity may have witnessed the first sign that the universe itself can think in frequencies. As the investigation deepened, one theory began to circulate through scientific circles, one that most researchers were afraid to voice aloud. If 3 Atlas was truly bending the solar wind, absorbing radiation and controlling energy with precision, then maybe it wasn't a passive traveler at all. Maybe it was built. The data supported a disturbing possibility. The Parker Solar Probe and Solar Orbiter had both recorded the same pattern, a smooth, symmetrical deflection of solar plasma that seemed to trace the outline of an invisible shield. This was not turbulence, nor the chaotic motion of charged particles near a magnetic anomaly. It was orderly, as if the solar wind were being guided around the object by design. That realization led to one of the most controversial hypotheses ever proposed in astrophysics. 3 Atlas might possess an active electromagnetic defense system. To deflect the solar wind so precisely, an object would need to generate a stable magnetic field strong enough to repel high-energy plasma. Natural bodies can't do this, not comets, not asteroids, not even small planets. But an artificial structure, perhaps constructed from superconductive materials, could. In theory, such a system could use electromagnetic resonance to create a bubble of protection, a magnetosphere on command, capable of redirecting plasma like a current around a stone in a river. If that was the case, then 3 Atlas wasn't simply surviving its journey through the heliosphere, it was defending itself. Astrophysicists ran simulations to see if such control was even possible. The numbers were staggering. The energy needed to generate a magnetic shield capable of bending the solar wind was immense, equivalent to billions of watts, the output of a small star. Yet somehow, the energy signature recorded by Webb and Parker matched that scale. The object's rhythmic absorption of solar radiation could, in theory, fuel such a defense field, converting sunlight into electromagnetic force. This wasn't a wild assumption. It fit the data perfectly. When the object's brightness peaked, the curvature of the plasma field intensified, as though the shield were pulsing in rhythm with the sun's energy. When it dimmed, the wind relaxed, a living feedback loop. Light, energy, plasma, control. At this point, scientists faced an impossible question. Was this the product of natural self-organization, a relic of magnetohydrodynamics we simply didn't understand, or a technological artifact? For some, the answer was clear. They compared the structure's electromagnetic behavior to known human technologies, spacecraft shielding concepts, plasma propulsion, even theoretical solar sails capable of bending light. None came close. What 3 Atlas was doing went beyond anything our civilization could produce. It was as if it had been designed to travel through stars, engineered to withstand, or even exploit, the fury of stellar radiation. And if that were true, then this wasn't just an object from another system. It was a machine built for interstellar endurance, a vessel or probe so advanced that it used the sun's own energy as both power and protection. Some researchers tried to dismiss the idea, insisting that no evidence of propulsion or internal systems existed. But others looked at the perfectly symmetrical magnetic arcs surrounding 3 Atlas and saw something undeniable: intentional structure. The thought was terrifying, because if this object was engineered, then it wasn't the first time it had passed through a star's reach. It could have traveled for eons, navigating the galaxy by bending solar winds, a star-surfing relic of a civilization that learned to control light itself. And in that realization, a new fear began to spread among scientists. Perhaps 3 Atlas hadn't come here by accident. Perhaps this system, our sun, was simply its next stop. As the data surrounding 3 Atlas grew more detailed, the implications became almost unbearable to contemplate. The bending of the solar wind, the rhythmic modulation of sunlight, the electromagnetic shielding, all pointed towards something that went far beyond the boundaries of natural physics. Each observation carried the same haunting message. This object was not merely surviving the sun, it was using it. The idea that an interstellar body could interact with a star's energy in such a controlled way shattered everything scientists thought they knew about celestial mechanics. To extract, store, and manipulate solar radiation with precision requires an understanding of electromagnetism and plasma far beyond anything humanity has achieved. To do it while moving through the violent furnace of a solar system implies technology operating on an almost stellar scale. And so, for the first time in decades, astronomers began to speak of something once relegated to theory: the Kardashev scale, a framework for measuring civilizations by the energy they command. Humanity still lingers between Type and Type I, harnessing only the power available on a single planet. A Type II civilization, however, could control the full output of its star, building structures like Dyson spheres or manipulating stellar winds at will. If 3 Atlas could truly bend the sun's wind, then it represented exactly that kind of power, the fingerprints of a Type II civilization. Not a myth, not a concept, a demonstration. Some theorists speculated that the object might be a fragment or probe left behind by such a civilization, a remnant of technology designed to feed on solar energy as fuel for interstellar travel. Others suggested it might be autonomous, self-sustaining, and intelligent in a way humanity cannot comprehend, a machine that became energy itself, drifting between stars and drawing life from their radiation. The physics supported it. To reshape the plasma flow of a star, the structure would need to generate magnetic fields millions of times stronger than anything humans could produce, channeling them with microscopic precision. It would need superconductive materials, energy feedback systems, and control algorithms capable of reacting to solar variability in real time. In other words, it would need to be alive, in energy, a fusion of matter and magnetism operating as one. Philosophers began to ask the inevitable question: if such an object exists, is it even meaningful to call it technology? Perhaps what we were witnessing wasn't a machine at all, but a form of evolution beyond biology, where civilizations no longer build tools but become them, transforming into entities of pure energy and magnetic control.